Well, good afternoon, or good morning, good evening, morning my time in Vancouver, Canada here. And it's nice thanks for inviting me. It's nice to be interviewed by you. As I said, to have a little chat. And I'm Tony Wallace, son of Michael Wallace. I should say father of Michael Wallace, correction. So, and there's Adam Wallace, who is also mentioned. He lives here in Vancouver. Michael lives in the UK. And I myself, Tony Wallace, Antonio Arnold Wallace, that's what I got to understand is my name, although it's not my original name. Wallace certainly has gone back some centuries. And I was born in Jamaica. Um, Grew up, went to school in Jamaica actually as a youngster. I believe I went to a junior school in Chapelton. I was born in Kingston, by the way, Jubilee Hospital in Kingston. And uh, and from there, I remember living in various parts of Kingston as my mom and dad, they weren't married at the time, but they knew each other. And they had myself and my sister, my younger sister, Beverly Wallace. She lives in Edmonton at the moment. Well, I used to live in Edmonton as well. But before I get to the Canada stuff, um, yeah, I was born in Jamaica and went to school there. And it was a very, I found it was a very open country, or where we lived. In Kingston, we was moving around a lot. My dad and mom moved around, um, lived in Trenchtown, interestingly. I didn't know that. But our folks moved around a bit, and Trenchtown was a famous little area. And I think I remember as a youngster, used to sit and talk to the Rastaman them. At the time, to me, they had long hair. you, you know, it's only when I grew up a bit I realized is they're dreadlocks. So I used to talk to a few of them when I was younger. We moved out of Kingston. We moved out of Kingston and moved to the, I think it's the bit in the east. Move away a bit from all the corruptions or the commotion that was going, because I guess Chinchtown was considered a ghetto. And as they say, a lot of the good music comes from the ghetto. Good reggae music are from the ghetto. And I used to listen to a lot of them when I was a youngster. I went to a few dances as a little boy, looking over the fence, going to the dance and just hearing the music from outside. So it was fun days. Um, yeah, as I said, I went to Chapelton School, and from there we moved down to Chapelton, where my mother is from. My mom's relatives are from Chapelton, and we, as far as I remember, as a youngster, we grew up in a place called uh, Donna Yard. We would say Backyard, but it was. I found it was a little cozy. It was like a little village, a little town. Everybody knew each other, and I could still go back to there today, and a lot of people would remember me as a young boy growing up in the yard, and that we call it yard, because those days it was like little wattle huts, the bamboo huts, little bamboo huts and straw tops and stuff, and we used to play, as boys, play marble and gig. We had a game called Gig. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one. Play the gig. Well, yeah, it was a cultural game. It's like a wooden little top, and you put you thread your string around the bottom of it, and it's got a nail at the bottom. And the idea is you throw it in a way that it hits the ground, spinning on the nail. That was used to fun. Marbles, of course, cricket, football. Yeah, so my mom and dad had moved to England by this time. Um, they went over to the UK in the 50s, well, let's say early 50s, no, late 40s, early 50s. Yeah. So so they had moved to the UK because the UK opened its doors to all the West Indians who want to go over, and of course the Jamaicans took the opportunity because it was work for them. So my parents left myself and my sister with my grandaunt living down a place called Ashley in Jamaica, you know, in Chapelton. So after spending a few years in the country there, which was great because it was taught me a lot about nature. I I know what cashew is. You hear the cashew, expensive cashew. Well, as a boy, I used to pick that from the tree like nothing and eat the fruit from it because it comes with a fruit, eh? And it was just lovely, refreshing, very sweet. But surprisingly, we used to use the cashews and play games with the cashews in a ring. Yeah, another cultural game. And and yeah, so lived a couple of years in the country there amongst the cows and the donkeys and the goats and the chickens, the rabbits. Some people wouldn't like to hear that. I used to eat the rabbit as a youngster. My auntie used to cook that on the weekend as a treat. And rabbit, funny enough, it comes in my the rabbit you play as a pet, and next thing you know, it's on your plate. Kind of sad, but that's how it is, survival times. Everybody got to eat, right? Like now we all got to eat and things are getting costly. But anyway, Jamaicans, anyway, my mom and dad went to the UK and spent a little time in the country, as I said. And my mom and dad had been away for about 3 years or so. Then she wanted us over in England. They decided to send for us because it was free, wasn't free passage, but you had to pay a fare for going there at the time, going to the UK. But it was my relatives, my mom and dad. So, it's like we just needed somebody to transport us. So my auntie, grand aunt, she decided to accompany us to the UK, of course, for a small fee. There's always a catch to it. But yeah, so we went to England in 1960, myself and my sister, and we landed in Clapham, which is you probably heard of Clapham. You're British, right? Yeah, Clapham North, Clapham. My mum and dad had a house there, so we lived in that house, grew up in that house. At this time, I was about, I was 8 years old. And I had my sister, she was 9 years old. So we were quite comfortable on this little street in Clapham there. You probably know the street, Sandley Street, if you ever go by that place. A big white house it was. One of the biggest on the block for some reason. I doubt my mom and dad afford it, but they were able to come up with the money and bought this place. Then houses were cheap. I believe my mom and dad told me they paid something like still like £500 or something. Those days, I guess, it was a lot of money. But yeah, so I went to school in first in Clapham, a little school, junior school in Clapham there. It was it's now I believe they're turning it into flats because a lot of the schools are torn down or used for something else. So this little primary school I went to, it's now a block of flats from what I understand. Actually, I've been there when the last time I was in England. I used to check out my little corners where I used to love going around. And I enjoyed going to school there. That's where I learned to play football. I played on the football team as I was 10, 11 years old. And yeah, I got on the football team. And I played the left, right, no, inside right, number 4. Get it precisely correct. So yeah, so we played and enjoyed playing football. Also played cricket, of course. As a youngster growing up, I played on the cricket team for a while. And yeah, won some sports honors as a youngster. And left there and went to a school called Tennyson in Battersea, Wandsworth. Yeah, it's no longer there now. It's some kind of a studio. But that's where I went to senior school. And it's a very interesting topic here because back in the 60s, schools, you didn't see too many black kids in the schools in the 60s. There weren't too many blacks. So I was fortunate actually to get into this school for some reason or the other, but I was one of the few blacks that was in the school. Uh-huh. So we joined a school, Aristotle's, which is at the bottom of Sandy Street in Clapham again. Um, they joined up with us, Tennyson boys, and Tennyson boys and Henry Thornton in Clapham. You probably heard of Henry Thornton. Used to be a grammar school, but they turned it into three schools into one at Henry Thornton. And again, this was when times were changing. Blacks were starting to come into the country. I was one of them, going to school and going through the system. Called all the racist names that there ever could be called growing up. But that didn't bother me. You know, guys would come and pat you on the head or want to ruffle your hair. After you've just trimmed it and everything and looking nice, they want to come and mess your hair. It wasn't very nice. But called a lot of names as a boy growing up because I was black. Yeah, but you live through it. You live through it. And I tell my kids nowadays that it was when I was growing up. They don't really understand what it was like, you know. They have to know, they have to feel it. You have to feel it to know what it's really like, you know, like everything else. And yeah, yeah, there was times learning what it is to go out in the world, because you know that's what you meet outside the world. Well, I met racism again. Coming to racism, I met that quite a lot when I was a youngster growing up. I had to learn all that, you know. I wasn't excited to leave Jamaica. Uh, I was living somewhere where I was comfortable. Although we weren't rich, we were poor. Um, go to school with no shoes. A lot of kids those days didn't wear shoes because it was so hot and everything else, and you just get climatized, you know. so so when my mom and dad, you know, in the process of sending for me and my sister to go to the UK, I didn't really understand where I was going. I didn't know where I was going. All I remember is seeing some pictures from my mother's wedding of the vicar was presiding over their signature in the church. And his nose was long. And I passed the comments and I said, how's this man's nose was so long? And I didn't understand at the time that's part of their makeup. The British, they tend to have long noses. But when I went over to London, first my impression was cold and damp and dark, foggy. In those days, with a lot of fogs, eh? Yeah, so I settled in, but I wasn't sure where I was going when I left Jamaica. I just here landed in this country called London. I've never seen white people. Fruits was strange to me. One thing I didn't care for was Brussels sprouts, because my mom used to cook that and I couldn't stand the smell of it, turn me right off. But now here I am every Christmas. I look forward to eating it. It brings back a lot of memories. But fruits were different. Food was different. Fish and chips I got a loving for. Fish and chips on Fridays, that was great. But I didn't know anything about racism at the time. Nothing. So being called these names and not really understanding what it's all about, I go home and tell my mom and dad, and they said, you should beat them up, punch them. So I thought, well, that means I have to fight. And I wasn't a very good fighter, of course, but I stood up for myself a few times. Yeah, but there's something I was learning as I grew. As I got older, I began to understand the meaning of racism, and it's being very uncomfortable in a place, in an environment. You can feel it. If you're not comfortable, you feel it, right? So, yeah. So you feel it around you. It's around you. So do you fight the system, or you try and change it? I was told that if you don't like something, or you can make a difference. And all through my life, I've been making a difference. And I see I'm making a difference through my kids. And I started off with them. I think what I know and what knowledge I have gotten over the years, I try and pass it on to them. And as you know, I've got 7 children, and one is a girl. She's the only girl of 7. But the other the boys are all doing very well. Yeah, done very well. Adam played on the football team for a number of years, and he did very well playing football, got a scholarship and all that. And now Michael has just got the Queen's Award. Bless his soul. I'm sure he's worked hard for that, and hope he continue making a difference, because he's in a position to make a difference. And I think he's doing very well at that right now. Yes, I like to think that, well, I learned a while back is that you can achieve anything you want to achieve if you work hard at it. You may have some difficulties. Some of us do have difficulties, which we have to overcome. And that's what drives us through. And I should say that's what drives me through, because I have difficulties myself. And one of them is communications. And that has propelled me along the way to move forward with my life. And I use it as a tool to help me, to guide me. You know, we may not be the brightest person of all, you know, but we do have a brain. So we practice, communication is the key. And I always tell my son that, you go anywhere in the world, you can communicate. And I went to the States when I was younger, actually, to New York. I lived in New York in about 69, 70. I went to New York as a young man, and that opened my eyes to a lot of things, living in New York, as a young man. It was exciting, but at the same time, I didn't care for the guns. No, as a young man, they scare me. I remember walking down the street in New York, and these two policemen was passing by, and I walked by, and I took my camera out to snap them. And he turned to me and said, "I knew you was going to do that." They were scary to me, the cops there, especially with their guns. Yeah, but I lived there for a while. It was a very nice place, met some friends, and still have friends that I've known from that time. So it was a wonderful experience for me to go to the States when I did. And again, coming back to racism, that was in the height of the Black Power movement. So I was brought into a situation where I was in England, and we were going through a bit of this Black Power movement, because fighting against racism again. And some of my friends leading that in Brixton was LKJ, Lyndon Kwasi Johnson, one of the freedom fighters, I should say there. But yeah, and I went to New York, and again, it was Black Power movement. So I was given the high five and right, that's the man and all that. Meeting the brothers, it was fun, because I was kind of working in a jewelry store, custom jewelry store. So the brothers used to come in and pick up their various knickknacks because they sell them, eh? So we were kind of the distributors. So a lot of the brothers come in and say, "Right on, brother." Yeah, they were fun times, and the black light parties and all that in New York at the time. Angela Davis was around those times. Yeah, it was fun. I couldn't get over though, the American kids, they were so tall, couldn't get over it. And there's those London kids were so small. It's just something I remember growing up, meet up against these American guys, and they're like 6 foot, and you were only 4.5 feet. There's so much I could talk about, Donna. There's so much I could talk about. Yeah, I was. Thanks for bringing me to that, because, yeah, after that, after being in New York for about 6 months, 6 months or so, I was in New York, and the thing is, I had a visa for about, I think it was about 6 weeks or something to that effect. But I went and extended my stay, because I figured I could stay longer, because I'm enjoying myself so much. But but yeah, my time was up and I didn't want to stay any longer, but my dad was saying that I should try and stay. But if I tried to stay in New York at the time, I didn't have a visa, I didn't have a green card. It wouldn't be a good thing the authorities pick me up and kick me out. so I so I went back to the UK and picked up where I left off in the UK. Why then I had a couple of kids at a young age. But I went back to the UK and got a job with J Sainsbury's. But before I did work with J Sainsbury's, I worked for the Met Police. Yeah, in 1969, I joined the Central Ticket Office in Central London. I was working there for a few years, 3 years or so, and that's how I went to New York. That's how I got to New York, because I took a vacation to go to New York and didn't come back. But I worked with the Met Police and met some good friends. I played football with them as well. As I see, Michael is now doing his football with the Met Police. There we go. There's another roots being laid. Oh boy, yeah, I played football with the Met. I played cricket with them also. And now I believe they're the traffic, metropolitan transport traffic agent, I believe. Yeah, yeah. So good things has come out of that. Hmm. So my next trip was to Canada. Well, of course, I did go back to Jamaica. I've been back and forth from Jamaica to see my grandfather. And that's another long-winded story as well. So I went to meet my great granddad. Not my great, yeah, my great granddad. No, my granddad. I wish I had met my great granddad. Yeah, I'm sure he would have had a lot to tell me. But I went back to Jamaica for a few times all day. And I should mention my granddad, his name was Cyrus Wallace, what they call him Barbasy. And the reason why they called him Barbasy, he drank so much rum. He loved his rum. But he always tells stories of his roots. And I believe his roots is from the Congos, West Congos. And he spoke some of the language as well. And some of them I still got written down. And I've got a tape of him when he was younger, and me meeting him and the stories he would tell and everything. And one thing he's always told me that sticks in my mind. It says, God move in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. And that's always stuck with me, you know, because here I am on this journey, not know where I'm going, but I've laid some roots along the way. My roots has been planted. And so has Baba C. He's planted that roots from way back, because he was a dancer himself. He played sports. He was a boxer. And he won a few medals from the government as well. Yeah, for being active in his community. So, yeah, so the roots have been planted a way back. It's been planted a way back. So we're just continuing the roots. And the cycle goes on, because we're not going to be here forever. But however, the name is hitched under the Queen banners there. uh, I was telling my dad about Michael winning his medal and that, and the name Wallace is under the Majesty's honors list, birthday list. So he says to me, that's been due a long time ago. It says they beat us in take our names away from us that we don't even know our real names. And they sold us and everything else. Definitely we'd do something. Putting up with all that, But I mean, it's part of the journey, I guess. Rome wasn't built in a day, and life wasn't built in a day. I mean, we go through this life not knowing where we're going, but somehow we get there in the end. Yeah, my dad went to the UK, as I was saying, around about 1940, around about 1947. And my mum went around 48, thereabouts. I think my mum went first to the UK, and then she in turn got my dad over. And they both ended up in the UK together. As I said, they didn't have nothing. They came to England with just they call it grip at the time. My mum would always say the one grip I bring, because they call it, suitcase, right? That's all she had. But those days, jobs were plentiful. You could get jobs those days, pretty good. My mum and dad used to say they would they would leave one job in the morning and get another one by the afternoon. They'd be working again. So yeah, so they worked. The pay wasn't much, but they still was able to survive. It's more so, yeah. Talking about roughing it. I mean, Jamaicans love their food, right? And and mom and dad, of course, being Jamaicans, they eat well, you know. So they would go to the market because I did mention I don't think I mentioned I grew up in around Brixton as well as a youngster, and my mom and dad used to shop in around Brixton. So me being an offspring of the Windrush era, I'd say I got to learn a lot of stuff around about the Windrush people, because all my mum and dad friends, they were all part of the Windrush generation. So I learned a lot from their living standards, right? And my mum always says you can never tell anyone that you got to bed hungry. Meaning she made sure we had food in our stomach before we went to bed. Real Jamaican woman she was. She learned to where she taught me how to cook, you know, and Mama used to cook up the good old oxtail. We used to go down to Brixton and you get the best oxtail and the pigtail, fish, you know. I believe Brixton has changed a little somewhat now. It's losing its culture. But a lot of the Windrush was out of there. A lot of the Windrush products, entertainments, and so forth was out from the Windrush era, you know. And myself playing football in around London was one of the first black teams. I played in one of the first black team in around Brixton. We were one of the first black team. There was no other black teams around. And we played as kids and we loved the game and we played and we won a lot of trophies and medals. I've got trophies here. I haven't got no space to put them. So I think I done well out of the Windrush era. At least I can look back at it and said, it didn't hurt us any. It was rough days, but we had to make do with what we had, right? And my mum and dad made do what they had in around the time they were living in Brixton, right? I used to remember going shopping with my mum. I pulled the basket behind her. And she'll meet her friends, and I would have to stand by while she finished nattering. and after the time, I wanted to get away to go to football. But nope, I had to pull the basket and collect the food. Yeah, but it was fun days living around Brixton area. Yeah, as I said, grew up around there, and I used to know all the corners. Things has changed somewhat now, but know Railton Road quite well. As I was saying, yeah, my mum, and well, my dad is retired now. He lives in Jamaica, in Kingston, as I was gonna say, and I was just with him a few months ago, and I asked him the same question about, you know, why did he come back to Jamaica? And he told me that my mum, he and his wife made a pact that they would always return back to their homeland. So I got to understand that, you know, and this is one of the reasons why they went to England to earn enough money to build themselves up, have a family just like everybody else, and they made a pact to go back whenever they can afford it. Unfortunately, my mother didn't live too long when she moved back. She passed away with cancer, but her legacy still continues. At least I can still make a dumpling. Oh yeah, she taught me how to make a mean dumpling. Oh man, yeah. Some of the cultural food I still know how to make. The Ackee and saltfish, the curried goat, lovely. Yeah, some of those I cook up sometimes I'm here. However, everything came to a end when I decided to move to Canada. And that was my next journey. I always had this feeling that I wasn't going to be living in England for the rest of my life. I always had this feeling that I was going to be somewhere else. And the opportunity came up. My sister, my elder sister, she's a nurse. So she was recruited by the Canadian authorities there and to come to Canada. So she came to Canada and lived in Montreal for a while, practicing her nursing career. And yeah, she's still living in Edmonton. But as I was saying, my dad, my dad and mom did go back to Jamaica, as I said, and my dad is still retired there. As I said, I saw him a few months ago, and he's looking very well. He's 91 now. And we reminisced about some of his younger days back in the UK. Yeah, this is another story going up in the UK as well. When he went there in the 60s, they had the Teddy Boys. And and he tells me a story about these Teddy Boys wanted to fight them all the time and beat them up. But what they would do, they would get a bunch of them, get a gang of them, and if they attacked them, they would get stuck in. Yeah, so they always had the Teddy Boys and the Mods on Rockers as well. That's another hero we went through. Yeah, it was all good stuff. So, as I said, my next journey was to move to Canada because I did come out to Canada here back in the early 70s, uh, about 76, thereabouts. I had come to Canada for holidays to visit it, just to see what the place is like. And landed in Montreal, and I thought it was just a beautiful place. It was so clean and nice and quiet, and the fashion was really good. Because coming from England and coming to Canada, they haven't got no fashion. So I was glad that I was quite happy to be in Montreal because it suits me fine when it came to the fashion. But then again, it couldn't have too much of fashion because it snowed so much. In the winter month, you don't see any grass or anything. All you do is see snow. And that's what climatized me to the Canadian weather. 40 degrees, minus 40. I experienced that in Montreal, of course. So after visiting Montreal, and enjoyed the place and loved the place, and I think I visited Expo. Was it Expo '67? No, Expo six. Was it Expo '67 in Montreal? I think that's right. Expo '67. Yeah, in Montreal. Yeah. So I went around. Didn't actually go to the exhibition, but um, while I was in Montreal, I went around the sites and had a look around and that. So brought back some memories from those times because I remember all that stuff, you know. So I went back to England and continued working, not with the Met Police. I worked with Sainsbury's for a while and at their head office. But after trying putting in some application to come to Canada, I decided to do some temporary work because I was into computers. I was a computer trainee at the time. So I decided to go out and do some temp stuff, make some money so I could come to Canada, which I did go out and worked in some of the offices there, some beautiful places there that I would never get the opportunity again. So it was really great. Enjoy that very much. And my sister got through to having me over to Canada, and I had to go for an interview at the embassy. So I went through all that, and I remember the gentleman who was interviewing me asked me, he said, what have I got to contribute to Canada's development? And I says, I can play football. I love my music, reggae music. And I can produce knowledge, something to that effect. But I told him that I've got all these skills that I could do something worthwhile. And I actually done that. Because I ended up on a community radio station while I was here when I came to Canada here. I I I was introduced to a radio station here in Vancouver where I'm living, and I I became I became a board member. I also had my own show, which is Roots Reggae every Friday nights from Vancouver. It's on the World Wide Web at the moment. If you ever want to listen to a late night program on the Friday nights, it's early Saturday morning. CFRO 104.5. I've known it from the 104.9 dial, which they had years ago. And that's always stuck in my head. So I did some audio work, also some TV live productions, and various other things in the media. So, yeah, so I guess I had something to offer. I had more than what they were expecting, I think, because my boy Adam, he could have, they should have called him to play for the Canadian side. But I say this outright: there was a lot of politics involved, and politics plays a big part in sports. You probably know that. But that didn't hurt us. We still went on to achieve what they had to achieve. Because what's meant for you is not going to pass you, my mum would always say. So no matter how long it takes, if you want it, you'll get there. Just like Terry Fox. Oh, you've heard of Terry Fox? It was an inspirational runner here. He had cancer and he only had one leg. You've heard of him, Terry Fox? He ran the marathon across the country actually, and he did it in good faith. Yeah, he really did well, and he didn't know where he was going to end up, but he did it anyway, and he ended up pretty good, pretty doing very well. I mean, he was trying to run across Canada, but I think he fell short somewhere along the line. Yeah. But he had that vision, eh? He wanted to do something and he set out to do it, right? And no matter what it takes, right? No matter what it takes, you get there in the end if you want to. I mean, you might be cut down with sickness or health or whatever, but you only can do so much, right? Then the rest of the way is luck. You need a bit of luck on your side. What I would like to, yeah, what I would like to say in general for people who are tuned in, that life is a journey. Life is a big one road. It's a long road. And on that road, there are many bumps. There things may come at you all the time, trying to, it's like obstacles, isn't it? Obstacles. You have to maneuver yourself around to stay on this journey, right? Like my dad says, he's having a good innings. He says there's some bumps. He says somebody throw a bumper at him. He's got a duck. But he said, yeah, he's gone for a century. And he's 91 now. But I'd like to say, yeah, for us who's finding, I mean, these days, there's this COVID epidemic that we all went through. I was no different. I was locked down for a few, well, a couple of years. Yeah, 1 year didn't do it too much, but you know, some of us, some of us take it to heart. But I mean, we do get depressed. I've been depressed, and I it took me a little while to get out of it. But here I am, speaking back on it, is that it's part of life. It's either we can handle it, don't let it get you down. I think if you think positive, think positive, and everything will work out. My dad said, everything will work out. Don't worry about it. Everything will work out.